All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we've got another recruiting video. I feel like we've been putting out all recruiting videos, but it's been a really busy 2 or 3 weeks that the Sooners have had, making a lot of progress with a lot of kids. Great spring game, and now it's the stretch from the spring game to the Champ Barbecue, as Brandon would like to call it something else, the Lincoln Riley Sucks Barbecue or something like that. But we're rolling into that first weekend of June, so we've got some recruiting notes as far as some targets, maybe a new commit coming very soon, some transfer portal discussion, and a few new offers that we're going to talk about. But before we get into it, we just want to say we really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. We've got a goal of 10,000 subscribers for this year, where we passed that 4,100 mark. Get us rolling, help us out. It's free. It helps us out a ton. We got a lot of good stuff coming your way. We're going to be coming out with some merchandise here pretty soon, and so you need to stay in the loop. Hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell, and like the video, comment on the video, follow us on our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, like us on Facebook, and find us on Apple and Spotify. And just really hit the notification bell. That really helps a lot. It's all free, and just do that. So I think we've got a pretty. This is not too big of a loss, but OU lost Nathan Rawlins-Kibonge. I think that's how you say it, to the transfer portal. He announced it this weekend. He's a 2021 four-star recruit. He was the number 2 player coming out of the state of Oregon. He didn't play for OU at all, but a quick visit, a quick stint with the Sooners, and now he's out. And, his recruitment, from what I remember, it was between OU and Stanford. OU, I think, offered kind of late, and then they were able to swing and get his decision, and, for him to pick OU over Stanford, and they secured him. I really thought, I think he's like 6'6". I thought if he spent a few more years in the program, that he might have had a chance, but I guess the depth chart just started really piling up. He probably started getting the feeling that OU was starting to recruit at an extremely high level along that defensive line position, and started realizing it's an uphill battle, and maybe he wants to go home. I don't know, being from Oregon, he might go somewhere closer to home. So, that marks the second transfer. Today's May 1st as we're recording this. So the deadline to enter into the transfer portal is today. So OU only lost 2 guys in the transfer portal. Jose, what do you think about losing Nathan Rawlins? And maybe let's just do a little open discussion on the whole topic of entering the transfer portal and OU only losing 2 guys to the portal this spring.
Yeah, I think it is a big time that it wasn't too many losses, especially after the spring game. After all the spring games for every school, I think fan bases and coaching staffs especially are probably kind of concerned at this point with how the NCAA is, who's going to leave because they didn't get enough, reps in the spring game, or they haven't felt appreciated, or, maybe it's a person that hasn't felt like the NIL opportunities are there for them. Obviously, there's so many factors that coaches have to worry about that's, losing 1 or 2 is going to be probably pretty normal up until there's some sort of regulation, if there's ever one. So that the fact that we only lost 2 is good. That means the players that are on the roster for the most part are happy. They see good culture being built there. Hopefully they have the good NIL opportunities. I know we haven't talked about it much, but with Switzer's new NIL program, where the football players are going to make some decent cash just for being football players, and the different opportunities that they'll get to do and make that money. It's going to be good for them. And other sports will get opportunities. They just won't make as much, but the football players are going to be taken care of. And Venables is doing what he can to get the culture and build that family atmosphere he's always talking about. With Rawlins-Kibonge specifically, I'm credit to Brandon. He mentioned that he was a transfer portal candidate, especially if he didn't have a good showing in the spring game. Didn't really appear in the spring game. Doesn't seem like he's very high on with the coaches. The relationship might just not be there, and which is fine. I think, like you said, he might be going back to the West. Maybe a program like Stanford will still take him in, and he will get closer to home, or maybe he'll go to LSU and join his previous position coach in Jamar Cain. So there's definitely options. It's going to be he's got a lot of potential, and the fact that he has all 4 years left, the coach just has to really like him, right? I think there's nothing that he's shown that is bad, but there's nothing he's shown that's great or flashy. He's just another guy with that you're pretty much getting another opportunity to recruit him out of high school because he hasn't shown anything at the collegiate level.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. I wasn't too horribly shocked when I saw that he was in the portal, as we talked about on the defensive line breakdown. I had him as a for sure candidate to leave. He's a guy we were excited about coming out. You mentioned his size. It's unfortunate it didn't work out here. I think, he just found himself pretty buried on that depth chart, and I guess didn't want to wait it out to see if he ever cracked the lineup. He's just going to test the waters, see if he can probably find immediate starting time somewhere. I wish him the best. Would have been, fun, obviously, if it worked out with Oklahoma, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, and best of luck to him and to Cody Jackson. It is what it is. Don't blame him. Overall, both these guys, we weren't expecting to be humongous contributors this upcoming season. So a little hip to the depth as well, but it is what it is. It doesn't mean that OU can't bring in one or two guys to fill their position. I feel like OU is going to go out and try to get a wide receiver. I don't know about the defensive line. I feel like it's pretty stocked up there. I mean, we saw it in the spring game. There's a lot of talent and a lot of depth there. I just think it really speaks to Venables' whole philosophy and his culture that he's building. I know he went up to the Canes ballroom, I think it was early or late last week, and he was having a little press conference talking about that he did over 80 player exit interviews, and at that point he only had a few left, and it sounded like he was really confident with who he was keeping and who was leaving. And I just think the fact that he was able to come in December and then turn this around and then build this culture and have that showing in the spring game, only losing two guys to the portal. There was a time where a lot of people thought the sky was falling and OU was going into, it's not a true blue blood anymore and various other things, crazy takes. I'm here to tell you that's not the case. OU is going to be just fine. Venables is getting these guys to commit and buy into the program. And I think that's just the proof's in the pudding, as these guys are not jumping ship and trying to go elsewhere. So I hope to see one or two guys that OU picks up in the transfer portal, but we'll have to watch over the next few months or so. And that's all I've got on that. You guys have any final thoughts before we move off the transfer portal talk?
I mean, hopefully they find a place to play, because I saw a stat that's like barely over 50% of the players that enter the portal get to go to another school. And I mean, Justin Harrington got lucky and was able to come back, but he almost was put in that position where he's going to have to find a way to get that degree, or it's not have taken the advantage of having a full scholarship to get an education. Because at the end of the day, football, only 1% of NCAA players actually make it in the NFL. So that means 99% of those guys need to take advantage of getting that free education, or you just ruin 4 years or 5 years of your life. And I'm sure they had a great time, but didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah, I mean, they run the risk, because I feel like both players, if they wanted to come back, I don't think OU would give their scholarships back. No. Well, I'm just being honest.
The way Venables spoke about Harrington, and I know it was like before his time because he wasn't the coach and really hadn't, didn't know the guy, but Harrington, in a way, had to like have multiple references. It was like a job interview. He had players, like coaches that were there in the previous staff, like stick up for him. He had to meet with Coach Venables a couple of times, pretty essentially kind of beg for his spot back in a way. And I'm sure it wasn't like groveling, but he did have to like make a case that why should you be back at OU? And I don't think Venables is going to, if like a Cody Jackson or a Rawlins-Kibonge wants to do that, it's going to be probably a little harder for them, because Justin Harrington had the benefit of the doubt because Venables had no idea who he was. But these guys have been around Venables for 4 months now. Like he at least knows who they were, and probably not going to be accepted back unless they do a lot of begging and have some really good answers to his interview questions. Probably need to get like 7 different references, kind of be put through like a hell of a Schmitty program, and they're not going to get their scholarship back. I mean, Harrington isn't on scholarship at the moment. They're going to have to work for it, and that's kind of the unfortunate part about the transfer portal. Not really talked about, because these guys are essentially like they're taking a bet on themselves. All those guys could essentially just be going back home to where they are, where they're from, and losing an opportunity to further their lives like the NFL does for a lot of players. You know, they get their dream, and this past weekend was the NFL draft, and a lot of dreams came true for those guys, but there's all those guys that went undrafted and guys that probably will never hit the league.
Yeah. And I don't know the percentage, but I feel like only about 20% of the guys that are entering the transfer portal are truly upgrading in programs. Like they're at small schools and they're upgrading. 80% of the guys that are entering are at a program they can't see the field, and they're hoping that someone else will give them an opportunity. And like you said, it's only around half that really get another opportunity. Otherwise, you end up at a JUCO, and then you have to earn, play a year there or two, and you have to earn it to go to another school. I don't know. It's
a big gamble.
Yeah. There's a big gamble when you don't have a lot of leverage. So I don't know, something to watch, something we'll be keeping a close eye on as we go into the summer, and best of luck to both of them. And we'll see what happens for OU as far as additions. So we talked about this kid, Kaleb Spencer. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, from Colonial Heights, Virginia. He's a 2023 3-star, 657 overall, number 56 safety. We talked about him. I don't know if it was in the last video, but maybe the previous one. It was sometime last week. He visited OU for the first time for the spring game, and there were some lock emojis thrown out, and we've speculated that he is the silent commit. And he recently tweeted out, I believe it was in the last 24 hours or so, or maybe it was earlier on Sunday, that there's an announcement coming soon with eyeball emojis. I would imagine that is his announcement to commit to the Sooners. I'm making some assumptions. It's not 100%, but it seems like everything is trending towards OU's way and direction. If you guys hadn't already seen what we kind of said about Spencer, I think we can kind of summarize it real quick. But from my perspective, I mean, being at 6'3" already as a safety in high school, going in your senior year, the kid could hit. He has great ball skills. I think he's severely underrated. He's like a Robert Spears Jennings, someone who was like rated number 1,000 overall, and then catapulted into the, as a 4-star top 100 some odd player by the end of the cycle. I feel like Spencer is going to be in that same boat. Brandon, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, just excited about him. If that is the announcement, I also kind of expect it to be. Going to bring some great size, great depth to that corner and safety room, which is already pretty damn good and pretty big. Excited to pair him up with guys like Jaden Rowe and Robert Spears Jennings.
We will finally get to stop waiting for a commit. It's definitely been a bit of a dry period recently, but if he does commit, I think it's going to be a lot of celebration from OU Twitter, because it's who was the last person to commit? Was it Jackson Arnold or Ashton Cozart?
Oh gosh, I think it was Cozart.
It's been
Cozart
quite a while, because I remember like going on on a trip back in February and talking about all the 2023 commits, and that's 3 months. That's a long time. So we're finally going to get that. Yeah. We're finally going to get that over with. No, hopefully this is just the first domino to fall, because 2023 right now is looking pretty thin, but there's still a lot of time in that recruitment process.
Yeah, and I think this is a good point, just to kind of bring this up, is I don't mind not seeing a rush of silent commits, a bunch of commits early in the cycle. I felt like in the last staff, it was a lot of kids would commit on a post-visit high and silent commit. We'd see some eyeballs, and then we'd never see anything, come of it. Or kids that would commit and then flip. I don't mind waiting, because I really think as we go into June and July, you're going to see a handful of commits. I think you're going to see over the next 2 months, you're going to see about 5 commits. I think we're going to get around that 10 mark in that class. And as we go further into the recruiting cycle, you'll see a few more. But as we get into November and December, you're going to see a ton of commits come to OU and really commit towards the end of the cycle. Because like we've talked about, it's Venables' rule that once you commit, you're not going and flirting with other girls, like going to other schools, which is right. Why commit if you're going to keep visiting? In my opinion, just leave it open. Your scholarship's going to be there if you're good enough, and OU's got a scholarship for you. It's going to be there in November. If they offered in April, so you don't have to commit right away. You might want to commit if spots start filling up, but I really think that we just need to take a deep breath. But this barbecue in June is going to help, and I think you're going to see a handful of kids commit over the summer. And we talked about in the last video, there's a couple kids, LeBlanc and Peyton Kirkland are committing July 23rd. Caden Green, I believe, wants to commit in the summer. Maybe it was early fall, but you're going to see some kids commit. You guys have any thoughts on that?
It's definitely going to be a lot longer process with Venables as the coach because of that rule that you said. Like, once you're committed, you're committed. Like, we don't want to see you going out there and visiting other schools, which is fine. Every coach has a different method of how they expect their players to come in from day one, even as simple as making the commitment to be a Sooner, right? He wants you to accept that and be part of the Sooner family. Others don't, right? Like you said, Lincoln Riley was very much like, if you're excited, we're excited to have you, and go ahead and commit, make that announcement on social media. And it did burn us a couple times where they would flip at the last second, but at the end of the day, every coach has a different philosophy into that, and Venables is just going to make it where we're probably going to have this kind of dry spell pretty regularly every offseason until like that summertime when kids can travel a lot more. Obviously, they're out of school, so their parents can take them more places. That's probably when we'll see more commitments come through. And like you said, I probably wouldn't expect the majority of the class to be in place until they can sign that letter of intent, and which is that November, early December time, because at that point they've got to make a decision. And if Oklahoma is a place, they'll know it by then.
Yeah. So, all right. After that little topic, we'll move on to the next kid. Jaden Greathouse, 6'2", 206-pound wide receiver from Austin, Texas, from our buddies down in Austin. 2023 4-star, number 111 overall, and number 19 wide receiver in the class. We haven't talked about Greathouse on this podcast. Someone I've been kind of following a little bit. He made his announcement today that the Sooners are in his top 4, along with Texas, South Carolina, and Notre Dame. I think he is one of the most, if not the most, college-ready wide receivers. He started playing for Westlake his freshman year, 182 catches, 3,134 yards, and 43 touchdowns in his high school career so far, and he hasn't even played his senior year. He's a terrific athlete and someone that could come in and contribute immediately. He recently visited Notre Dame, and there's been a few recent crystal balls to Notre Dame. It seems like Notre Dame is the trending school right now for him. But with OU making his top 4, and I would imagine OU is going to get a visit from him, maybe for the barbecue or something like that. I would imagine over the next month or two, we're going to see a visit from him. And, the Sooners might be able to kind of curve some of that momentum. They might be able to get him kind of to come back and really think about his decision. I know he's only got one official locked in, and that's with South Carolina in June 10th, I believe, on June 10th. So no officials other than that. I think OU will get an official. I mean, obviously being in the top 4, and he has 5 possible. I think OU's got a shot. It's going to be an uphill battle. But I think they could make some noise. I'm not going to say he's going to be the Sooners at the end of the day, but I really think OU's going to give them a run for their money. Brandon, what do you think about Greathouse or the implications of the top 4?
Yeah, no, I think obviously being in the top 4 is good. It's a good spot to be. Like you said, I think we're definitely going to get one of those official visits, and that should also help our cause. Like you said, he's 6'2", 206. He's got really, really good size. I think he would be so fun to pair with like Jaden Gibson. Jaden Gibson, Ashton Cozart, that class, Nick Anderson, could be a pretty fun receiver group. I like him and Gibson's size specifically, though. I think it would be fun to have big receivers. With Greathouse, his numbers just jump off the page at you. You mentioned his over 3,000 yards in his career so far in high school, and he hasn't got to senior year yet. As a junior, though, he had like 60 catches, 20 of them were touchdowns, and then he had almost 1,300 yards. So like a third of the catches he had as a junior went for touchdowns. I mean, he had 20 receiving touchdowns, which is ridiculous. So yeah, obviously he would be a huge get for OU. I just, the idea of pairing him with Jaden Gibson on the outside is fun. Especially, you got Jackson Arnold slinging it to him. That could be a lot of fun for a lot of years if it works out. So hopefully OU is able to, push and get it done.
We need this guy, not just because he's talented, but because that wide receiver room is going to be extremely thin next year. I'm sure we'll get maybe a couple transfers over the summer, but I think so. Right now on 24/7, the projection is that we'll have 4 wide receivers in the room to start the 2023 season. Don't know if that includes. We don't have any wide receiver, or I don't know if that includes Ashton Cozart, but let's assume it's not. Then Ashton just adds to 5. Still isn't very many receivers for a room that's typically pretty loaded with talent at Oklahoma, at least over the last 8 years. So we need to figure that out, make sure that we can get his commitment. South Carolina is really starting to make a push for some of these big recruits that we're going to be competing with Shane Beamer again for this guy. And like Brum said, he did get a couple crystal balls to Notre Dame, but I believe he also mentioned that he just came off of a visit from them. So there's always that, post visit high where these kids are super excited, but he's already got his visit to South Carolina planned for the middle of the summer, I believe. So we need to make sure that we can get in before and after that, because he needs to be a Sooner. And again, it's not because he is very talented and he'll add a lot to that room, but we need talent at that position, because from the top of we'd have Nick Anderson, Ashton Cozart, Jaden Gibson.
And it just depends on like if Mims is coming back, Stoops will be gone. Theo Weiss, if he has a good year, he'll be gone. It's really thin.
It's gonna be super thin. So it's that's definitely just he's great. And I'm not saying that guy not committing to Oklahoma will be the most hurtful loss because of the position where we are in that position group right now. Not that we're not going to get more, but having 2 really good receivers, and like Brandon said, really big receivers is going to help with recruiting more guys. And I think this is where, like, the last couple of years we've been pretty spoiled, because we had Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams really recruit the offensive guys in their wide receiver weapons. This year, Jackson Arnold's a little bit more laid back, isn't on social media as much as those other guys were to recruit the wide receivers. Not that he's not doing anything. I'm not saying that at all. This time it's just a lot more Josh Bates. He's going after the big boys in the trenches, which is fine. We talked about it last week. It's exciting. It's good that there's another leader stepping up outside of a quarterback, but we need the quarterback to come in and be like, hey guys, come join me. They're both, Jackson and this guy are in Texas. I'm sure that they go to a lot of camps together or have been to some camps together. Like, start making that connection, because you are the leader for the wide receivers and the running backs. And if you can convince them that you're their quarterback, that's when they'll join you. Right now, Spencer Rattler is the benefit for South Carolina, and probably why they're in the conversation for some of these good wide receivers in the upcoming classes.
Yeah. Now, another receiver I forgot to mention is Jalil Farouk. That he could be wide receiver number 1 come fall of 23. So, all righty. I mean, I guess he could be number 1 this fall too. I don't know. It seemed like Dylan Gabriel really liked him in the spring game. So last guy we're going to talk about is a new, recently offered kid, Sergio Snider, 5'10", 185-pound running back from Arlington, Texas, 2023 3-star, number 637 overall, number 46 running back in the class. In his career as a sophomore and junior, 188 carries, 967 yards, and 20 touchdowns. He's also a special teams contributor. OU offered last week. I'd imagine this offer came because of Trey Wisner committing to Texas kind of out of the blue. So obviously he's out of the picture, moving on. OU, it seems like they're in a really good spot for him. I think Snider had OU high on his list before they even gave him an offer. It's kind of, being in Arlington, it's not that far away from him. I think OU immediately goes into his top 4 or 5 schools. I know he recently visited Nebraska. And if, he's been talking with some other schools, but I feel like if OU really presses him for his commitment and he gets on campus, I'd imagine he'll come up from the barbecue next month. I think OU's could really win out and get him. I think the running back spot I think Dylan Edwards is the true that they're trying to lock him down. And if they can get a second running back in this class, I think they'd be happy. I just don't think that they're really going to be pressing too hard for anyone but Dylan Edwards in this class. Yes, Richard Young is out there and he visited and he's probably going to take an official, but he basically came out and said that Alabama is his place. And that's where he feels like his best fit is. In my mind, he's just taking a visit to OU just because he's got a free trip. I might be wrong, but I just feel like that it's going to be Dylan Edwards and maybe Snider. I think they're going to try to take 2 kids, but I don't think that they're going to really be pushing for, a top running back. Not that Snider, I mean, he's rising. He's good. I just don't think he's quite at the level as what Wisner was. Jose, what do you think about the recent offer and your opinions on that?
I think you put it perfectly with the situation that seems to be coming up and why he's got an offer. Definitely a guy that would be great to have. He would add a little bit of versatility. He is really good at catching out of the backfield, from what I could tell in his tape on the recruiting websites. He'll add that extra thing, but again, this room does have a lot of depth. I think come next year, I guess, just depends on the departures. But Dylan Edwards, like you said, I think seems to be the guy that Oklahoma really wants as of now because of the Wisner surprise commitment to Texas. But getting 2 running backs is probably going to be important because Eric Gray leaving, Marcus Major status unknown. And then Gavin Sawchuk we haven't seen anything from him. I know I'm excited to see what he can do, but he seems like the change of pace guy for Javante Barnes, or the pass catcher out of the backfield, because Javante can run downhill, but we haven't seen him really catch. So that'll probably be something that they'll develop, but this guy can catch. So, it's going to be a competition there and really just how the offense is run. So hopefully he does make a couple of visits here in the next 4 or 5 months so that Oklahoma can start locking down a couple of running backs for next class.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of agree with what you guys are saying. I mean, he's a guy you definitely want, just because, I think he went for almost 700 yards in the ground last year, 11 rushing touchdowns. He also caught 30 passes. Jose alluded to his ability to catch the ball to the backfield, and Brum talked about him playing at special teams too. So he's obviously very, very versatile. And he adds that of the 2 running backs for the 23 class, as Brum mentioned, that we're kind of looking at are the guys we feel the best about. I am more excited about Dylan Edwards versus Snider. But that doesn't mean that I don't think they can both be good. I see Dylan Edwards as being a sneaky good. He I think is a guy that I'm very, very excited about and very hopeful that he ends up with sooner. Sergio Snider, obviously, if he commits, I'll be ecstatic too. But just of the 2, I'd be more excited for Dylan Edwards. But we'll see how it works. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and going into his senior year, I think he could put together a terrific season. He very well might rise in the rankings. Obviously, if OU's offering him and DeMarco Murray's offering him, they must feel like he's a little underrated. And it might also be the fact that they're not going after the top of the top talent, because Wisner and Richard Young were the other 2, and they seem to be trending elsewhere. Maybe it's because you're jumping in recruitment late. You kind of go after a kid that might not be as highly recruited, but has a very high ceiling potential if he gets a few years in the system, and you immediately jump towards the top. I mean, because if you offer the number 5 running back in the class, whoever that is, that kid's probably been recruited for the last 2 years to other programs. You're not going to make that up. But if you offer a kid that doesn't have quite as many offers or quite as big of offers, your brand just takes you way to the top. and you're kind of jumping in late. I mean, it's May 1st as we're recording this. A lot of the, we talk about 2024 and 2025. I mean, OU's already starting that relationship with 2025 kids. So this goes years. So if you're trying to jump in late on a top kid, good luck. So, but anyway, that's all I've got. I think I'd be happy if you hopped on board. Do you guys have any final thoughts, or Brandon, you want to roll right into your end of video challenge for us?
I don't have any thoughts. Hose, do you have any, or are we ready for the end of video? Ready for the end of video? All right. Well, obviously, we were talking before we started recording, and this end of video challenge was set before we started recording. It came to me. I am watching the hell out of Ozark right now. They just finished. They uploaded all of it. I'm going to finish it. I'm very excited. I love the program. I know Brum watches it too. I know Jose right now is watching Gossip Girl, another fantastic program. So what are you guys watching right now? What are we watching on Netflix, HBO, Hulu? What series are we all on right now? That's it. Just another one of those get to know you type questions that I think are fun.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know what you're watching. I need to start the final part of season 4 of Ozark here this week. And we'll catch you later this week, and just hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell, follow us on our social medias. It's all linked in the description below, and we will see you Wednesday morning.